In the ancient land of Israel, a young shepherd named David tended his flock. The world around him seemed small, just the fields, the sheep, and the sky above. Yet, in the simplicity of his life, God was preparing him for something extraordinary. This is the story of how the hand of God turns the ordinary into the extraordinary, through faith, trust, and courage. God had a plan for Israel, and it was time to choose a new king. He sent his prophet Samuel to the house of Jesse in Bethlehem. One by one, Jesse's sons stood before Samuel, tall, strong, and full of promise. Yet God said, "No, not this one." Time and again, the obvious choices were rejected. And then came David, young, humble, tending the sheep, far from the expectations of royalty. But God saw something deeper, something extraordinary in this shepherd boy's heart. It was David, the one overlooked by many, who would be anointed as the future king of Israel. God's unlikely choice, showing that his plans go beyond what the eye can see. Have you ever felt too small or unworthy for a great task? God sees the heart. David didn't seek glory. He served faithfully in small things first. Across the battlefield, the ground shook as Goliath, the giant of Gath, stepped forward. His voice boomed, mocking the Israelites and their God. Day after day, Goliath challenged them, daring any man to face him in combat. His armor glistened in the sun, and his spear was like a weaver's beam, impossible to carry, let alone defeat. Fear gripped the hearts of Saul's soldiers. No one dared to face the giant. They looked at his size, his strength, and they saw an enemy too powerful to overcome. But in the midst of their fear, one voice stood out. David, the young shepherd, arrived on the battlefield, not with weapons of war, but with a heart full of faith. He looked at Goliath, but he saw something different. He saw not an invincible enemy, but a chance to display the power of God. Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? David asked. While the soldiers saw defeat, David saw victory, not through his own strength, but through the strength of his God. He stepped forward, not with sword or spear, but with a simple sling and 5 smooth stones, armed with faith in the Lord Almighty. Where others trembled, David stood firm. He wasn't moved by Goliath's size or threats, but by the unshakable belief that God would deliver him. With faith and courage, David walked toward the battlefield, toward the giant, with the confidence that with God, the impossible could be made possible. What giants are you facing in your life? This connects their personal struggles with David's battle. With Goliath towering before him, David stood, small and unarmed by comparison. The giant mocked him, laughed at the sight of a boy with nothing but a sling. But David's confidence was not in his own strength. It was in the name of the Lord. "You come against me with sword, spear, and javelin," David declared, "but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied." With a single motion, David reached into his pouch, pulled out a smooth stone, and slung it through the air. Time seemed to stop as the stone struck Goliath's forehead. The mighty giant, who had once filled the battlefield with fear, fell face down to the ground. This was not just a victory of stone and sling. It was a victory of faith, a triumph of God's power over fear, a reminder that with God, even the smallest can overcome the greatest. David trusted not in his own strength, but in the Lord, and through that faith, God brought victory to Israel. David's victory over Goliath was more than a physical triumph. It was a testament to the power of trusting in God. When we place our faith in Him, no giant is too great, and no battle is too impossible. David didn't need a sword. He had something far more powerful, faith. His victory came not through strength, but through his unwavering trust in God. So, what victories can you claim when you trust in God? We'd love to hear your stories. Have you experienced a moment where your faith helped you overcome a challenge or achieve something that seemed impossible? Share your victories in the comments below. Your story could encourage and inspire someone else today. David's victory over Goliath was only the beginning of his journey. Though he was anointed to be Israel's future king, the road ahead was far from easy. David would face many trials, battles, and moments of deep uncertainty. Yet through it all, his faith in God's plan never wavered. From the humble fields of Bethlehem to the royal court of Israel, David's life is a powerful reminder that God's purposes often unfold in ways we least expect. Even when the path ahead seems unclear, when obstacles appear insurmountable, like David, we can trust that God is at work, shaping us, preparing us for what's to come. David's story shows us that great things often have small beginnings. It's a journey of faith, where trusting in God's timing and plan leads to greater things than we could ever imagine. His humble beginning didn't define him. His faith in God's promises did. Just like David, each of us is on a journey. We may not see the whole picture yet, but when we trust God, we can be confident that the best is still ahead. The story of David reminds us that no matter where we start, with faith in God, our future is full of promise.